How to create new music genres for music producers. Genre is a myth. And what I mean by that is that genre is defined after it is created. And also, genre is usually created by combining multiple different other genres together to create a new genre. Here is a clear example. Gospel, jazz, country, boogie woogie, electric blues, rhythm and blues all got combined between 1920 and 1950 to create a new genre. When that genre was created, someone named it in 1954 rock and roll. These genres got combined by artists. Different artists were combining these genres over this time span. And as they combined these genres, it created a new genre. And eventually people started to catch on and it got named rock and roll. So the reason why I call genre a myth is because every genre is influenced by other genres. It all starts to become one in a sense. And there is common threads between all music that I discovered, and I called them the core principles of arranging. And these principles transcend genre. These principles are in every track ever recorded. Okay, they transcend genre. So if there's principles, if there's core principles that transcend genre, then that means that all genres are related in a sense. Let that sink in. So what are we doing when we create a new genre? Well, we are cross-pollinating different genres together to create a new genre. Now, what is a genre? Well, a genre is when you use these core principles of arranging in a particular way that creates this genre where it's identifiable as that genre. And how you do that is using specific techniques that are built on top of these core principles. So, for example, with rock and roll will have particular core rhythms in that genre that are identifiable to that genre, particular instruments, particular techniques, particular way of doing things. And over time, people identify rock and roll as that. Rock and roll uses different harmonies, different structures, counter rhythms, different instruments within the stereo field. Rock and roll uses those elements that help it to define it as rock and roll. And then if you listen to trap music, well, trap music uses different harmonies, different structures, different ways of using the instruments within the stereo field. It uses different core rhythms, different BPMs, different ways of using instruments within the foreground and background. Okay? So these principles are the same in every genre, but the way that these principles are used is what creates a genre. And the way that techniques are used, the way that layering is used, the way that the instrument choices are selected, all of these contribute to the genre being created. So that means that if genres are created that way, through the process of mixing, cross-pollinating influences, then if that's the case, can you intentionally create new sounds? Well, here's the thing. Here's how our influences shape the music we create. We have a taste in music. Everyone has a taste in music. It's unique to them. And this determines who influences us. Because your taste in music will determine who you want to listen to. And when you listen to influences, well, you will learn music production techniques from those influences. So if you only listen to rock and roll, techniques will subconsciously move into you. And then when you create music, those influences will start to come through you. And because you'll have a particular musical taste, you'll want to choose particular things within your own music. Your decision making becomes that. And then number 3, the cross-pollination of techniques from your influences and your musical intuition combined with your internal source, your flow, becomes your sound. Okay, so rather than just copying people, if you have the ability to look at your influences, see what's influenced you, and grab building blocks from all the different influences that you have, not necessarily mentally do this, but intuitively do this. Allow it to flow through you authentically with your own musical intuition. Well, that will become your sound. Okay, so this is how this process works. If you think in technique building blocks, say you've got all these influences from rock and roll, maybe you also listen to trap music and you also listen to R&B, and maybe on the side you listen to some classical music. All of those different genres will be influencing you with different techniques subconsciously. You'll be picking up on different things. All these different building blocks are starting to form. And then you start to combine those building blocks in your mind like this, because your mind picks up this technique from this song. It picks up this technique from this song. Maybe it picks up this technique from a mentor, this one from an article, this one from this song. And then as you're creating and you're allowing source to flow through you, you're grabbing all these techniques intuitively and it's coming through you and it becomes your decision making. And the more expert decisions that you have, well, the better that your music's going to sound. Because if you're analyzing the great music of all time, then your decision making will be that of the great music of all time. And then if you're cross-pollinating all these, well, then you are combining genres. Because really, there's just so many genres these days that it's hard to just stick to one. You're going to be grabbing influences from all different genres. Okay? Because genres are an identifiable set of techniques that people gravitate towards to create that genre. So if you think of rock and roll, you think guitars, you think drums, like organic drums. Okay, you think a rock singer has a particular timbre to it. All right, there's identifiable traits with rock that people associate rock and roll with. And if you go outside of that and you start to grab influences from different genres, well, then you're cross-pollinating genres, and then that becomes a new genre. A good example of this is Major Lazer. So a lot of the time they draw core rhythms from different cultures and they combine it with dance music, and they're grabbing influences from all these different cultures to create their own unique sounds. Another example that I put in this book of cross-pollination is Rick Rubin. So Rick Rubin, when he was working with Run DMC, he guided them towards doing a cover of Walk This Way, which was a rock song. And then they did a rap version. So in that version, they used hip-hop samples to create the same drum beat. But because they used hip-hop samples, it sounded like a hip-hop song, even though it was a rock beat. So by combining the samples with the rock pattern, it created this new sound. And then by doing rap over the verses of a rock beat, well, then you're combining genres there as well. Okay, so cross-pollination of genres. And by doing that, they created this rock rap song. And it actually helped to bring hip-hop more to the mainstream by doing that. So that's the process that's happening here. All right, so this is cross-pollination. You have genre 1, and then you've got genre 2. And then you think to yourself, how has this genre used the techniques? What techniques are they using to create this genre? Because every genre will have identifiable techniques that everyone uses to create that genre. And then you've got principles of arranging. How have they used these principles of arranging to create that genre? How have they used layering, stems thinking? How have they used sonics in this genre? What specific instruments are very common in this genre? What genre-specific styles do they use? And when you grab techniques from all of these different categories right here, and then you do the same for this genre, and then you combine these techniques together, these building blocks together, you create original sounds. I think to Avicii, Wake Me Up. He was traditionally in more of a dance music genre. Okay, he would create music using synths, dance beats, samples, things like that. Then he combined country music. He grabbed country music influences like guitars. And then he had Aloe Black, more traditionally a soul singer, come onto that and sing on top of a dance beat mixed with country, mixed with a soul singer, and that became Wake Me Up. And when it came out, it just sounded so unique. And then Wake Me Up became one of the most genre cross-pollinated songs of the 2010s. So that is how you do this. You can do this intentionally with this process. And when you do it, you're also letting the internal source flow through you so that you're authentic to yourself. You're not just doing things for the sake of doing it. You just let it flow through you. Okay, and that's the process of cross-pollination. That's what happens when people create new genres, create new sounds. It's usually when they've subconsciously picked up techniques from all these different genres, and they've had the courage to not copy anyone anymore and just say, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to grab this influence, I'm going to grab this influence, I'm going to grab this technique. I'm going to use the principles of arranging in the way that I want to use them. And they transcend genre. And this can really apply to anyone. I say music producers, but it can really apply to anyone. As an artist, as an arranger, as a songwriter, as a music producer, you can come together. And when you actually do collaborate, collaboration can also lead to new genres, because every person has a unique influence set. They each have a unique way of seeing the world, a unique musical taste. So when you combine those musical tastes, that can also lead to this process happening automatically. So that is how you do it.